Back in early 2020, the Tested team and I flew to New Zealand to visit our friends at Wētā Workshop as they embarked on their most ambitious project yet. A sprawling exhibition celebrating the creative genius and the deep problem solving that Wētā Workshop and Richard Taylor have made world famous. That exhibition, now called Wētā Workshop Unleashed, is open for public display in Auckland, New Zealand, and I cannot wait to see it in person. But until then, let's go back and visit me and the Tested team in early 2020. I'm at Wētā. I'm covering their incredible location-based experience, and specifically one of their giant monsters that they are currently building for this exhibit. And to put this together, they have assembled a truly international crew where everyone might not speak the same language, but they all speak the language of craftspersonship. We're going to go get a look at the mother monster and see just how it's coming together. Hint, it's awesome.
So welcome back to the sculpting department.
Thank you.
Jane's busily working over there on a new secret collectible, hidden away. But here we're sculpting the mother creature from our world of make-believe. And this is for the Fauna movie we've been talking to you about. In fact, this is the character that's actually going to do a dastardly deed to you.
It's going to kill me.
It's basically going to rip your throat out. So.
Having only seen it in two-dimensional form thus far, it's amazing to see it.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? This is Gong's design. We basically had lots of people. Gong, can you grab the maquette? So we probably did a dozen maquettes to suggest that might be how we would design a series of characters. Wow. And the team here, including C and Gong, did a number of these beautiful maquettes, which the paint department then painted. And from those, we selected our favourite. Yeah. And our favourite ultimately was Gong's, and he's now led the sculpting design of this. This is a maquette that he did, which is very beautiful. Just a matter of a couple of days. Really? To ascertain what we'd want the character to look like. And now Gong is working on the head, which is a beautiful piece of work. So, because the creature is made of the forest of New Zealand, it's why we're working with the kuru that is inspired from the fern frond, the unfolding fern frond. And you can see the ferns here all spiraling in. Gong, are you right if I just turn it?
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, my goodness. Now, at the same time, you're also working, the public's going to be able to animate this thing. Correct. Is that correct?
Yeah, so down below will be a series of big levers that are working aqua pneumatics. So we will put a liquid-assisted compression cylinder and then back pressure with about 10 psi of air, and then the public will be able to move it and articulate the face, the hands, one of the wings.
Are you excited to see it actually move?
Yeah. So Gong and C are joined us from China about a year ago and are really fantastic sculptors. C is a very skilled digital sculptor as well, and he sculpted the beautiful robot that you're seeing that we're building.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So, yeah. Amazing. Mm. What happens to these next? You're going to actually cast these and start to work out the mechanics?
Yes, correct. We will physically cast this, and as you can see, it's an exceedingly difficult thing to cast.
I have no idea where you even start.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and it has a number of other sort of dreadlock-like feathery plant growths out of its head, which will all have to be done independently, and they will be in some form of maybe 50 gerometer material so that they will move and shift around. Mm-hmm. And then, in fact, there's one that's attached right now. And the head will possibly be in silicon or urethane. We're still waiting to decide, depending on the flexibility that we need, the durability and flexibility.
The durability strikes me as a huge problem to solve because this is going to be activated. Normally, you make things
for 3 days.
Shorter timeline.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine that was in one of the very first workshops that we shared. He said a effect should last for 3 days. It should last for the pre-light, the day of the shoot, and pickups. And on the 4th day should self-dismantle so it goes back in the dustbin easier. But of course, with location-based experiences, that's not at all the case. These things have to be very durable. So it's very, very challenging.
My God. I mean, the degree of detail, it's like you see it from here and then you come in and then there's this whole other layer and then you get even closer and there's this whole other layer.
And you know, this piece looks like it's had many months of work on it, but it's actually been a very, very quick sculpture. And Gong is, both of these two gentlemen are fantastic, not only in their artistic ability, but the speed in which they can sculpt.
Yeah.
And that's because they have an assured eye. They're not second guessing themselves. Right. Every stroke put in with the sculpting tool is a stroke that stays.
Wow.
They then don't decide or undecide whether it's in the right place. And that's the sign of a very gifted sculptor, as opposed to someone that fiddles away trying things and so on.
I would imagine that's a hard thing to train. You kind of have that, or
it's either imbued in your being or it's not, I think. Maybe after many, many years you gain confidence and you can get to that place. But many of the sculptors here have it. I'm a sculptor myself. Yeah. I don't have it. I wish I did. And I walk in here and are utterly inspired by the likes of Jamie and Dan, these guys and other people that work in here.
So when the public interacts with this and they see it really big, they're seeing the kind of whole complete effect, but will there be part of the exhibit where they get to see this detail close up and see the incredible craftspersonship?
Yeah, in fact, just this morning before you arrived, that's exactly what I was working on. We're mocking up the tables that sit below this creature. This creature will actually be way up above us, and we'll stand back here and operate it. But then scattered on the table below the creature, because in theory, we're building this to go on set.
Right.
So the table we're building on is not a museum display, it is a workshop table. And the units, just what I designed this morning out of folded cardboard, will have handles on them as if once we've finished, you basically lift them and carry them to set, right? But scattered on the table will be sections of skin that people can feel. The sculpture may be there cast in resin, but painted to look like plasticine. Bits of working mechanisms so they can see how we've figured out the mechanism, similar to what you saw in Jordan's office, and et cetera, et cetera.
Will the eyes blink?
Yeah, the eyes will blink, the mouth will open.
Maybe some fangs?
A small, he'll do fantastic. He's great at dentation. So he'll do some wonderful teeth set that will end up going in the jaw. When we finally come to manufacture this, we will actually blank this entirely off. He's sculpted that just to suggest what the palate may look like. But we actually will put a full curvature of plasticine into it because we don't actually want to mold the inside of the mouth in the original mold because we're trying to replicate the sense of a lip thickness. And we'll do that by blanking this off, and then when we core the head, the back of the lip will be in the core.
I see.
And there'll be a tiny little blend line, just like the prosthetics we saw, splitting the lip around here, and that will be burnt off or ground off.
And when you do that, that allows you to add sort of realistic flesh mechanics to how the lip moves.
Absolutely.
Is that right? The lip becomes part of the engineering.
Absolutely. And what you'll see in the Jeff puppet is that exact mechanics working.
I think people don't realize that. I think people think of prosthetics as like a rubber thing that goes over a mechanical thing, but the rubber thing is part of the mechanical. The rubber parts are part of the mechanical.
Just exactly like we are. Like we don't have a floating skin on top of a skull. It's integrated through the sinew, the bone, the muscle, etc. And similarly, you want a skin to be interconnected into the animatronics.
Yeah. This is a great argument about why knowing deeply about human and animal anatomy is so important, because when you make a fantastical creature, it still has to adhere to the laws of physics.
It does, and if you make something wildly fantastical, it loses its plausibility, and you need to pin even the most fantastical creature back to some laws. And, you know, if you look at this, for instance, the eyes are about the size of a human eye or a bear's eye or a creature that we know. They have the placement in the face of a creature that we may know. The eyelid configuration is recognizable to us, even though it's in an alien face. The jaw itself splits almost proportionally to eye-to-mouth ratio. Gong is doing that to make sure that the sculpture has defining things that the audience get. Right. And that allows them to have a much greater freedom in the fantasy elements that he invests into it.
Now, when I look at this looks very fleshy and this looks almost like a carapace. Will there be hardness differences in those in the final piece?
That's what we will try and simulate, absolutely. This is a bony crustacean on the top of the head. We're trying to inspire from New Zealand fauna and flora. So tuatara, the native New Zealand lizard, been around since the time of the dinosaur, and that's the qualities in this. We've got the qualities of the wētā, our namesake, and then also the qualities of plant growths, feathers off the tui bird, etc., etc.
Richard, it's so exciting.
Wow, thanks to these extraordinary people.
Just amazing.
Yeah. And you can see what Gong has visualized and what C is now sculpting is the idea that the body is a combination of organic material, root-like material, and flesh.
It's multiple layers of growth.
Yeah.
I mean, this tells a story that it has grown out of multiple elements.
Yes, it could be a mythological creature that has grown from the earth, or is it an animal? And we want that ambiguity in its design.
I mean, because they look plant frond-like, but they also look gill-like.
Absolutely, absolutely. Playing again to the tuatara, to the birds and creatures of New Zealand. Interestingly, New Zealand had almost no mammals when the Māori arrived, and we had a small bat. In fact, I think we either had 2 or 3 genus of that bat. So hence why we're putting bat wings on it as well, and we're playing to the New Zealand, to the creatures of Aotearoa in the form of the bat wings as well.
And then this will also get traditionally molded.
Yes. Well, exactly. It's what the guys live for, of course, because they want things that are a conundrum.
Right.
And
that's a problem to solve.
Oh, you wouldn't believe some of the molds that sit through there. I take photographs of them as art pieces because they look like something that's arrived off another planet.
Right.
They look like a creature in their own right, with all the runners and the risers to make sure we bleed bubbles and get back pressure and so on. That's what this will be. This will be a massively complex mold. So these guys certainly challenge our other departments.
Even down to the beautiful detail of like the skin and bark sitting on top of the branch.
Well, how C has done that is he's gone out to the tree outside. That poor tree has been so abused by us. There is a New Zealand native tree called the pohutakawa, and it is a beautiful tree. It's synonymous with all Kiwis. In summer, it almost bleeds red flowers into the gutters, right? Like millions and millions of fine little fronds. But the bark texture is beautiful, and it is also synonymous with New Zealand. If you remember Treebeard out of Lord of the Rings, he had one of the epiphyte-like growths off his beard, which was from the pohutakawa. But what C has done is he's gone and molded it. There's a positive of the piece of bark. And he now takes little plasticine presses out of the mold, carefully peels them out, and then applies them over his base sculpture and then blends them in. And can I have one of your, and you can see the tools that we use. We make these ourselves. Ooh. And these are a combination of these fine little wires, and they will chase surfaces in. You can see, and what I'm doing is rocking the sculpting tool so it glides over the surface, but it doesn't create a defining line.
Right.
If you want a more defining line, but not entirely, you use a 3-pronged rake. And these are now used all over the world. And maybe we didn't discover them and someone else did. But Jamie Beswarrick, our senior sculptor, really developed these for us to do skin pore detail very, very quickly. And everyone now uses them for doing this sort of texture.
Thrilling. Richard, thank you so much for showing me this in progress. I cannot wait to see it fully extant. That's going to be unbelievable.
Great, great. Yeah, beautiful stuff, eh? Cool.